In the past few years, too many teens have been seriously injured or killed on our roads. In this program, we will share with you the stories of teenagers and their parents who have seen the life-changing consequences of seemingly innocent actions by young drivers. We encourage you to watch this program with your parents. You may be able to avoid some of the painful mistakes which can happen on the road. Our first story features a young driver who is thankful to be alive after a highway incident overturned her truck. See these road signs behind me? A road sign, just like one of these, crashed through Denise Des Moines' windshield, and she lived to tell about it. These cattle are the pride of Denise's life. She cherishes the moments she gets to spend with her prize-winning friends. Not long ago, she was nearly taken from them and her family forever. On the way back home from a livestock show, traveling at about 65 miles per hour, Denise reached for her cell phone. That move proved to be a big mistake.
The traffic wasn't very heavy that day, but there were some cars, but not anything just, super heavy. I happened to pass between cars and managed not to hit anyone when I did. And hit a road sign which fell forward onto the cab of my truck and shattered the windshield. I don't really know which direction I went or which way I was going. I had no idea what I'd hit that had stopped me. But when I got out of the truck, I immediately, I had to remove my seatbelt because thankfully I was wearing my seatbelt, and that's one of the major lessons that I learned is how important it was to wear your seatbelt. I'm very aware that without the restraint of my seatbelt that I could have been killed in this accident because of the driver's side door being open when the accident had finished.
While Denise walked away from this high-speed rollover, the effects on her and her family still linger.
Why am I sad? Because of the mistakes that I made affected my family and all of them, and the way that they continue their lives and the way that I continue mine. We spend each day trying to, not take for granted the time that we have together.
When parents hand over the keys to a car, the opportunity to drive can bring a new sense of freedom to a teenager. But risky driving behaviors such as speeding, not wearing safety belts, or not paying attention can, on the other hand, become the keys to calamity. Denise's case is an example of driver distraction. Driver surveys indicate some of the most common distractions are talking on the phone, tuning a radio, eating, and personal grooming. Driver distraction is a frequent cause of motor vehicle crashes, just like Denise's. You may have taken to the road quite a few times and put a few miles behind you. You probably feel very comfortable behind the wheel. So why is it that auto crashes are the leading cause of death for people between the ages of 15 and 20? The answer is experience, or rather, the lack of it. No teenager wants to be called inexperienced, but the truth is, you are a relatively new driver, and it takes time to become skilled at safely maneuvering a vehicle. It is so easy to get seriously injured, lose your life, or take the life of someone else. A 17-year-old David Garitano found out the hard way. One of David's joys in life is shooting hoops. When shuffling on the court, it helps to clear his head. But the tragedy of his crash always lurks in the back of his mind.
It was hot. It was a hot day, so I opened up the moonroof, and all of a sudden I noticed that something was dripping and trickling down my arm. And I really wasn't sure, and I completely forgot that I had been burnt the night before. And I began to kind of look at it, and it was on the other side of my arm. It was on my tricep. And I didn't notice it, but I was turning the wheel while I was looking at it. And then sure enough, when I looked up, there was a car in front of me head on, and I didn't have any time to turn the wheel or honk or brake or react at all. And then after that, I just remember waking up in the car, with the dash basically in my lap, and a lot of blood on me, and not, very disoriented, not knowing what had happened.
What happened was this. David had crossed over into the oncoming lane and collided head-on with another vehicle. Not only was David hurt, but the family in the oncoming car was seriously injured as well. One of the children, an unborn baby, died within days of the crash.
We would love him forever and never forget him, but we didn't want
The mother's
him
statement
to
read in
suffer
court
anymore.
was deeply moving.
I now
Her
was
haunting
faced
words were spoken
with
directly
planning his
to
funeral.
David.
There is no way to express the full impact this accident has had on my family's life. We've had to live with the sorrow of knowing we have lost a son, a brother, a grandson, and a nephew. I cannot express the despair that enveloped me as I realized that my sweet son had died in the arms of strangers.
It was depressing to know that you had caused something that would cause somebody else to lose their life, you know. And I know it was a child, I mean, somebody that didn't have the opportunity to live their life all the way. You know, they didn't even get the chance to breathe for the first time, you know, with a healthy body.
David went to court for his crime. He faced the possibility of jail time. His remorse and willingness to accept responsibility led the judge to be lenient. David was given probation and community service. He must now devote his time to speaking to high school students about the tragedy he caused.
That's what I found unique with David is that he showed remorse about what has taken place with this accident, and he's taken responsibility for this from the very start. Usually it's very difficult for someone to deal with the fact that they have taken someone else's life.
A lot of things go through your mind, you know, from major things like just sadness because of what you did to knowing that you'd lost everything that you'd worked for, too. I mean, I know that's not a significant loss compared to what the other people, you know, the victims of the accident lost. But that was my first car, and I had paid for it completely. I had worked for months to pay for it.
David now faces the challenge of going on with his life. David was not paying attention when he caused this collision. Driver inattention is estimated to be a factor in up to 50% of highway collisions. David wants his tragedy to help other teenage drivers like you. You may at times feel that your parents are a little too strict with you about driving. When parents hand over the keys to the car, they're sometimes filled with mixed emotions. They want you to learn responsibility and independence, but they know they cannot shelter you from all the dangers that lie ahead. And they should be concerned. Traffic safety officials say the attitudes of some teenagers cause many problems. There are tendencies toward rebelliousness, risk-taking, or defiance of authority. Dangerous driving practices intensify the risk, such as when teens speed, drive recklessly, use drugs or drink alcohol, and then get behind the wheel. Sometimes parents gradually grant driving privileges while issuing firm warnings. They know about the dangers and how quickly a joyride can turn into a tragic trip. Your parents don't want to lose you. They don't want to experience the horror of a police officer bearing bad news, as one did to Teresa Carrillo.
He said, "Do you know this young man?" And I said, "That is my son." And he took a deep breath, and he looked at me, and he held my hand, and he said, "I'm sorry to inform you, but your son was killed in an accident at 108 today." The young man who was driving the vehicle, being inexperienced himself, lost control of the vehicle. The vehicle struck a pole on the passenger side. Sonny was killed instantly.
Shortly before his untimely death, Sonny excelled to the distinction of a black belt in karate. He was disciplined and responsible. His mother seemed to have done all the right things. She set and enforced clear rules about using the car. During the day, it was to remain parked at school. It did. Unfortunately, Sonny was riding in someone else's car that day. It was at the hand of another young, reckless driver that her Sonny lost his life.
The driver was speeding. The driver was inexperienced. The driver was immature. But the driver was also his friend. Somebody didn't feel their obligation. I had very clear rules, and obviously, he followed them. The really unfortunate thing is that while I might have a lot of rules, do we have parents out there with the same kind of rules?
One time, you concentrate on the center. Do you understand? So get it done. Heel first. Those boards are standing in your way. They're between you and your black belt. Take them out now. Go ahead, buddy.
The stories of Denise, David, and Miss Carrillo are all real-life examples of what can happen, even to you, on the road.
I think my first mistake was taking my eyes off the road. It's very important that you watch at all times, especially at high speeds, such as I was driving, 65 miles an hour with the cruise set. The other mistake was reaching for the cell phone. Those things are not so important as watching the road or being cautious and aware of other drivers.
I used to think, when I first started driving, and when you go through driver's ed and what they tell you, you think you're responsible for, yourself. You're responsible for the people in your vehicle. But when you think about it, it goes beyond that. You're responsible for the people that are on the road around you.
It may take a little longer for you to abide by all the laws and go the speed limits, but please do. Because if you don't, it could be tragic for you or someone else.
Some of my friends don't like to ride with me because every time they get into a car with me, I make sure that everyone puts on their seatbelt. I don't let anyone ride with me who won't wear their seatbelts.
Maybe not everybody will listen to what I'm saying, but maybe if one or two people hear it and it sparks them to think while they're driving, maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe I should, pay attention a little more, slow down or whatever, then it was worth it, than just, talking and letting people know what happened.
I would like to tell the parents of all the young drivers or the future young drivers, educate our youth to drive safely.
As we close this program, here are several very important things to remember. Safety belts save lives, so wear yours. Drive safely and don't speed. Never drink and drive. Eliminate potential distractions. Using a cell phone, changing the music, and personal grooming while driving can be deadly. Pay attention to other drivers and try to anticipate their next moves. Don't assume everyone will drive as safely as you. We hope you will take what you've learned here with you on the road. But of all these things you can do to protect yourself, the easiest and most effective is simply wearing a safety belt. I cannot tell you how important this is, so I'll show you. Once I chose not to put on my safety belt. Today, I live with the consequences.